moderator?
No, I don't think so.
We don't have a moderator? What's up, everybody? We are Soundbooth Theater, and we are here to put on a panel for you. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, Geneva, if you want to come in here and moderate, that's fine with me. But we're going to be talking about audio in general. We're going to be talking about narration of audiobooks, and we're going to be talking about how we take audiobooks to the next level. Not like that. Not like that. We never do that. Don't worry.
Well,
I don't know.
yes,
Wait, we might have a reason to use that in DCC at least at some point. What's up, Kyle? Good to see you. All right, so thank you guys for coming. Thank you, everybody, for hosting us. The Lit RPG group, Geneva. Thank you, GuildifyCon, for inviting us here to talk about audio and talk about Lit RPG, of course, and how Lit RPG led us into this realm that we now occupy. So yeah, Geneva, thank you.
Yes, but yeah, absolutely. So real quick, if you guys don't mind and go around, we'll just have you guys introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you do at Soundbooth. So Ahmed, why don't you start us off?
Hi, I'm Ahmed, and I'm the lead engineer at Soundbooth. I handle, mastering and editing, and some quality control, and sound effects, and music, and some advertising. And well, I think we all wear a lot of hats.
But mainly, Ahmed is the dude who hooks us up with all the ridiculously crazy, awesome sound effects that we hear in our cinematic or deep dive productions, depending on, what era that you're used to talking about us from.
He is our audio world builder.
That's correct.
Supreme. All right. And Jeff, I know many people will recognize you already, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Jeff Hayes. I'm an audiobook narrator. I own Soundbooth Theater, and we make a whole bunch of crazy noises for you guys to enjoy, specifically in regards to storytelling. So, yeah, that's me. I narrated Dungeon Crawler Carl. Some of you may have heard of that book.
I don't think anyone's heard of that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of obscure. But there's a little contingent out there who's really into it. So,
all right, and Aaron.
Hi, my name is Aaron, and I am the lead composer for Soundbooth Theater, which means on a lot of these titles that call for epic or stupid music, one way or the other, I provide a lot of that. So I come in and do basically the score, some of the titles, and in cases like DCC, I'm like contributor to the soundtrack. It's actually very collaborative in projects like that. So I'll do something like, just a short little clip of something that needs to sound like this, and then somebody else will jump in. But otherwise, I'm a primarily music guy here at the team.
Very cool. Well, we will, I'm sure, have some questions coming in from the audience here, but I will get us started with some. So what made you think of Soundbooth Theater and creating this? Like, were you just doing straight narration and you wanted to bring more? Was it just a dream all along? How did you come to create Soundbooth Theater?
Yeah, so when I first started narrating, of course, I wasn't thinking too much about sound effects or anything. I was just thinking about doing the best job I possibly could as a voice actor. Let me adjust this a little bit so it's just a little out of my face. There we go. All right. As I kept going, and because I started my narration journey, after having become a musician already and after having already recorded a bunch of music with my band at the time, I already had all this gear, right? I knew how to use the program. I knew how to make sound effects, quote unquote. So it just kind of became a thing that snuck in to what I was doing. I started actually composing music for like the beginning and end of my books, especially the ones that I really enjoyed and that were royalty share. And people, I don't know how people felt about the music at the beginning and end. You know, it wasn't a thing that I got a lot of feedback for. But it was a way for me to, you know, pull in my first love into what I was actually doing. And so I just kept doing it. It's not like people were complaining or anything. But then I started doing sound effects here and there. You know, I think I probably used vocal effects from the get go to get different things to represent different things, like, you know, talking to someone on the phone, right? Or hearing someone's thoughts, you know, telepathy, right? Or, you know, someone just thinking to themselves, that kind of delay slash reverb that we use for thoughts in a lot of our productions. That came way early in my career, and I was actually putting characters in their own separate tracks because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I had no idea that was a weird thing, but you know, to me, it seemed like, of course, you would put different characters in different tracks. How else do you keep track of who's where? But yeah, it turns out it's a giant pain in the ass for most narrators who've never done it before. So you know, I've always been audio minded rather than just audiobook narration minded. Audiobook narration was a thing that I figured out it's a problem I figured out how to solve within the context of the audio experience I already had. So Soundbooth Theater itself, it's the name is a product of me just trying to come up with the name of a show I was doing. So Twitter came out with this new service called Periscope, which was their streaming, right? Like super easy streaming, like you push a button and you're streaming. That was a long ass time ago, and at that time, I hadn't seen any narrators doing it. Not that no one was doing it, but I didn't know. I'd never seen it. So I started doing it. I started taking requests. That's where my relationship with Neven Iliev came from. People requesting Everybody Loves Large Chests when it was just a Royal Road freak show, you know? So I started doing that, and I called it Soundbooth Theater Live. And the name just stuck. You know, eventually I got bored of being just a guy narrating audiobooks, and I wanted to get more actors into the process and bring in more people, like bring in younger people who were just starting off, and see if I could help them get their careers started. And, you know, it became a less and less lonely occupation once I started doing that. But again, the name just stuck. I was like, I got this name, Soundbooth Theater. Why not? It seems to encapsulate everything that we're doing pretty well. It seems to communicate communicate the spirit that I wanted the company to have, which is one of kind of like a band or a troupe of actors that are, you know, traveling together in a mobile theater or something, you know. That was kind of the vibe I wanted the company to have, and I feel like I've done a decent enough job creating that that environment here. And yeah, that's just, I mean, from there it all snowballed, and now we're here.
So to add on to that, this one's for Ahmed and Aaron. How did you become part of the Soundbooth Theater crew? And Jeff, also, I really think you have nailed it with that feeling, because that's exactly what I see when I think of Soundbooth Theater. You know, it's, you guys are this massive team of amazingly talented people that just come in and work magic, in my opinion. So,
Well,
so Ahmed, do you want to take that one first? How did you get involved with Soundbooth?
So, while I was teaching audio engineering at a school called SAE, I taught there for a very short period of time. I was working at a con called, it's an Audio Engineering Society's con, called AES. And apparently Jeff had visited it and ended up visiting the SAE booth. And then I got word that he was hiring, so I interviewed with him and Sin, and I was pleasantly surprised to discover that they were working on role playing games. And it's interesting. For the last, like, I guess 20 years, I've been playing for probably for 30 years or more. Um, but it was always something that when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't share with anybody. It's just like I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't tell anybody. Oh, I'm going to hang out with some friends. Like, I wouldn't be like, I'm going to play D&D. And now it's like this completely different thing. And when I heard that they were working on this sort of thing, I was curious. I was like, oh, it's like, I totally play this. And it turned out that the books were about a subject that I actually had some prior experience regarding. Additionally, I play music. I played music for a good number of years as well, touring as a guitarist as well as singing, and playing various instruments, recording various groups, and so I was also interested in bringing some of those talents to bear. And I think as I've been working with the team for the last I guess 7 years now, I've been able to use a plentitude of my talents, and which has been great.
And how about for you, Aaron?
Cool. Yeah, a few years ago, I was actually in 2020 that I wound up a bit more consistently involved. Before that, my first introduction with Jeff was our mutual friend and SBT regular Annie Ellicott, who's one of our amazing actors. She and I both live in Tulsa. She and Jeff were working on one of our projects that was a bit early on for our attempts at involving a more serious soundtrack into the project. Is a project called Monster at NYC. And at that stage, things were still growing, and Jeff was experimenting with the company, and I was brought in just as like a producer on that one project. And then later on, right as the pandemic was hitting, as fate would have it, he gave me a call and talked about like, hey, so like this is all growing. We're going to do more of this, and would you like to come on and do maybe some music and sound effects and other things like that? And I came on doing kind of both of those things, and then eventually sort of narrowed my focus on the production side to just music, and it's been awesome. I do a ton of different projects. I design marching band shows, score kids TV, like little, festival film scoring and music production. And then, this comes along and becomes, sort of one of these big, constant, creative outlets is, I just keep on, hey, there's this new book we want you to come in and do music for. This one is, a very psychological, horror fantasy, and you're going to have to think, like, get really twisted. I'm like, okay. And so and then the next one is very comedic, and so this is just kind of one of those dream gigs, because there are a lot of people on this team, and they're all really cool people. And so I've just wiggled my way in as just a quirky mad scientist in a studio, and yeah, that's how I got here.
I see you have quite the setup there too. I see you got a keyboard, so a drum set. How many instruments you have in there?
Yeah, this is what I call Studio One. This is detached from my house. I've got my percussion corner back there. There's a drum set. There's actually a vibraphone you can barely see right here. I got a little keyboard there. Got a keyboard in front of me. Right now, I've got a couple other auxiliary instruments sort of out, but my living room, if you walk in my front door, you can see 15 instruments from one spot, like hanging up. There's a grand piano, there's guitars, there's that's where Studio 2 is. So everything is out, so you can always reach it and mess with it.
So we do have a couple of questions coming in. So I'm going to start with the easiest one here from John. Is it true that getting a slot with Soundbooth Theater requires a minimum number of feet picks, and what is that minimum? And I would like to mention, if in addition to this, If you are not on Twitter, you may not have seen Matt Dinneman has said he will go on the Stats on Stats show if enough people send Richie Stevens feet pictures. So Soundbooth Theater, any feet pics that are your minimum would also go to Richie, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And to answer John Klein's question, the answer is 11. There, at least 3 of them need to be single feet. And, you know, we need, like, we need to see range, you know, so different paint styles on the nails, different levels of hair, you know, on the top of the feet, you know, so like do a little bit of waxing, you know, like make sure they're presentable, and at least 2 of them also need to be both feet at once. And Annie comes in exactly at the right time.
Yes. Hi, Annie. How are you
this.
doing?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Geneva. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm late.
No problem. Actually, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do at Soundbooth Theater.
All right. I'm Annie Ellicott. I am I'm a voice actor for Soundbooth Theater. I think we're calling me the lead female narrator. And
Indeed.
I am also a composer, and I'm co-creator of Space Buns, a Soundbooth Theater original. And I also tried my hand at musical direction for Monster Hunt NYC 3 just very recently, this year. I believe it was this year. Maybe it was last year.
Now she says that
sums it up.
She says that, but I think Annie's responsible for, you know, most of the better tunes in the entire Monster Hunt NYC series. When Harmon wrote that book, he basically had me and Annie in mind, and so it was definitely a collaboration as far as music from even a composition standard from the get-go. So yeah, Annie was the music director of the very last one, but she has been making original music and performing original music for Monster Hunt NYC for the entire series.
That's awesome. I'm big fan of Harmon's work as well, and I'm a huge audiobook listener, so I've heard quite a bit of all this. So it's great stuff. If you haven't listened to any of it, definitely check it out. Now we've got another question. This one's a little bit more serious, less about feet. We've got from Kyle here. Where did your love affair with the type of theater that Soundbooth does, I'm guessing that, originate? I'm going to add a word for him.
Yeah. It originated from narrating, actually. You know, I never was into audio drama that much. I think I did hear Neverwhere, Neil Gaiman's audio drama. Uh-oh. Looks like Annie was having connection issues. That's probably why she was late. She was trying to find a good connection, still couldn't find it. Yeah, Neverwhere, I think, is Neil Gaiman's audio drama that I listened to that I was very impressed by. Dirk Maggs, of course, was the director of that one, and he's the same guy who directed Neil Gaiman's Sandman series. Just an amazing, amazing director. When it comes to audio drama. But before that, not really much exposure at all. I guess before that would be when I was a toddler, going to, like, my mom would take me to the public library, and we would find cassettes that go with the storybooks. So like the Bernstein Bears were the ones that's the one that comes to mind immediately. I would listen to that while reading the books, and I would do it over and over and over again. I absolutely loved those things as a kid. But then, you know, after that little era of my life, they just kind of blinked away. They just weren't really a part of me. So it was really the reactivation of that love through actually just experimenting with sound myself and playing within the audiobook production realm that I was like, let's do more. Let's just try. Let's see how much of a show we can make this. So it was actually working in it it was actually being an audiobook narrator that revitalized that interest that I had. And of course, like I said before, I've been a musician since I was 15, 16. I don't know. I could say I was a musician in grade school because I was doing like school band stuff. I just didn't like it back then. But I think it's just a general love of sound that caused me to continue pursuing more and more things as I grew as a producer.
Now, for all of you working in the various aspects of sound booth theater, do you find that, well, no, let me rephrase this. Did you ever think, coming into your respective careers, that this would be what you're doing now? Or is this something where, it's just completely, you could not have imagined doing everything that you guys do at Sound Booth Theater at this point? And we'll start with Ahmed for that one.
It's not totally out of the realm of where I was going. I was imagining a studio and maybe music, or more of that, or live live sound work. But this has kind of given me a sort of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise, in other types of productions, and I'm grateful for that.
And how about for you, Aaron? With all these instruments and doing so much with music, did you think it would be used in audiobooks?
It didn't cross my mind initially. With Sound Booth Theater, especially because Sound Booth Theater is such a, I think we have, a lot of like headroom to keep on expanding the kind of things we do. Sound Booth Theater is for the most part like a very niche, specialist company. Like we really do kind of lean into, the specific genre of, RPG and adjacent things. And so with with a long-standing love for fantasy and sci-fi and just creative, quirky, outside the box stuff, I wouldn't have guessed, but I also wouldn't have it any other way. It's super cool to be working on stuff that's just so like out of left field. I'll tell strangers what I do sometimes, and they'll be like, actually, there's this company that does this, and they're like, there is, and I'm like, yeah, and I so it's a major point of pride for me to kind of be part of something that's not an overly commercial product. It's like everybody on the team, we're here to have fun. And I love that.
So my next question for you guys, there's been a lot of questions on the narrators panels and things like that, specifically asking them, like, how do I get to work with you? Or, what does that process look like? Now, with them, a lot of them, it's ACX. Is that a similar process for you? Or do you have a completely different process? How do you go about finding who you're going to work with? And also, what is your selection process? If people approach you and say, I want Sound Booth Theater to do this, how do you decide which projects to take on? Oh, Jeff, you are muted.
So ACX for us is basically just where we publish now. That's just the portal through which we feed Audible our goodies, and Audible noms them and spits them back out onto their own website. So, so contacting us through ACX isn't gonna really work because we're kind of just ignoring our message box there. But we do get direct emails. We get contact through Facebook. We don't have time to search out people anymore because we're always getting asked. The process is just, I would say, a bit less formal than maybe a lot of places, but we do want to see what kind of, like, for instance, if you want to work for the team, like if you want to be an engineer or if you want to be a narrator, then we want to hear what you've done, so people need to send their clips of some of the things they've done, some samples. With narrators, it might be a demo, or with engineers, it might be just a reel of what different kind of sound effects they might have done. But then we take it to the managers. We all look at resumes and samples and everything, and we just talk amongst ourselves. One thing that we have done too much of lately is growth, because we're all human beings and we need to kind of grow with the growth of the company. And we're all so goddamn busy that that's a very difficult thing for us to do. So, part of the whole process has also been trying to figure out who we can have as administrators and connective tissue that can keep everybody, sane while still growing. So email team@soundbooththeater.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us if you want to work with us on our team. But if you're an author, acquisitions@soundbooththeater.com. And again, we kind of go through the same process with authors. It's just different context. Okay, you want to work with us on a particular book, we got to see sales numbers. And if you don't have sales numbers because you haven't released it yet, we have to see do you have a mailing list? Do you have a following on Facebook? We need to see whether or not you have the kind of draw that we can afford to take a risk on making your book, because also we don't work per finished hour. If you were to go to most independent audiobook narrators who, you would just approach them to have your audiobook narrated so that you can release it independently yourself. Almost all of them work on a per finished hour basis, meaning you're going to pay them one flat fee once the production is done, and then the royalties go to you. But we're more like Podium or Tantor or any of the other audiobook production companies, where we take a percentage instead of a per finished hour rate. But because we're a much smaller company than those guys, we're able to offer a higher percentage. And we're also able to do more as far as production. We're able to just put a little more love and care into your production, and that's kind of our whole thing. Is that we're not going for quantity, we're going for quality. We're trying to make every book that we make memorable and something that something that you can enjoy whether you like the story or not. We want to make sure that it's a pleasant experience, or at least an amusing experience, as you're listening to the audiobook.
So to add on to that, if somebody wants to work with Soundbooth Theater, you guys have agreed, yes, we want to record your book for you. What is the process like when you're deciding which voice actors will be working on it, how much involvement the rest of the team will have as far as sound effects and musical effects and all of that? Do you sit with the author and discuss the options, or is it based more on each story and what you believe will best enhance the story?
Yeah, so at this point, we're mostly just doing audiobook, right? And we'll have one narrator plus another narrator backing them up for the opposite sex characters that they're playing. And then usually I'll do 2 or 3 voices, just to, get in there and put my name on the narrator list, and to, just add that little extra flavor to whatever the character is. Often I'm the bad guy, which I absolutely revel in. That's one of my favorite things to do. So from there, we're trying to focus more with the sound effects and music on very specific projects. We're not, number one, it has to have some kind of, we have to feel like it's going to make money, right? We have to feel like people are going to come and get it because it costs a lot of money to make them. But also that the product itself will lend itself to a full production like that. If you have an audiobook that's 2% dialogue, it's not going to make a very compelling audio drama, right? An audiobook is actually probably going to be your best bet anyway, as far as the production is concerned. So now we're just getting more picky about it. because we're publishing everything that we do that's big sound effects and music and big cast production on our independent site, where we don't have to share any profits with Audible, and we can set prices how we want, and we can chop the show up into more pieces so that we can get more money per full purchase, because again, it's an expensive endeavor to go into so much detail. And I mean, imagine making a cartoon without the animation. That's the kind of work and time that it requires, except, obviously longer than any animation that you're going to encounter. It's very it's a long, hard, very satisfying process. But it's expensive, and it's not something that we can continue to do over and over. Annie's been having so much trouble with her internet.
She's trying a new location, it looks like now, so we'll see. Hopefully it loads up. So
Hey.
We do have 2 questions from Rebecca H, and they both kind of go together. So first was just what all platforms are your titles on? But the second part to that is, do you record live via Discord or Zoom or something, or do narrators record their own stuff and send it in to be assembled later?
I can take this one. Yeah, it's definitely B. Part of what makes us Sound Booth Theater is we are, a theater of sound booths. All of the narrators have their own sound booth. Is that a train?
Annie comes in just to share her train.
I just
Speaking of
realized
sound
my
effects.
my whole job in this channel is just to be a
It's okay, Annie. It's okay.
You can always mute.
It's just funny.
after another.
It's just funny. But yeah, we do the sound effects and music for specialized work. However, we're constantly releasing books all the time on Audible. And on our platform as well, we release a lot of stories. So we're constantly releasing standard audiobooks. But our process is kind of it's sophisticated. It's like an IT company. Like we go through phases. We have very specific ways to quality control the audiobooks to make them more precise, to constantly increase the quality. We have personnel that focus specifically on a task, whereas I imagine a lot of people who are doing audiobooks on their own might be trying to do a little bit of all of the things. We actually have these departments, and they're all doing these very specific things down an assembly line of work. So it's to increase precision and to make the quality better and ever improving.
Does anybody want to add on to that at all?
I'll say, as somebody who's not a part of the standard audiobooks almost at all, just because I'm on the production side of the really involved projects, I have seen a lot of what goes on for the production of just a standard audiobook, and what Ahmed's talking about is there's just a lot of detail work, because it comes down to pacing, timing, and there's a science that these guys have figured out about how to convert a book to script format for the narrators, and optimizing it so that it's not just somebody reading you a book into a microphone, but it's actually delivered in a really compelling way. And that takes a lot of stuff that I'm not even involved in at all. I'm just like, you guys got that. That's crazy. But yeah, everybody really, really cares that it's like a really excellent listening experience.
Geneva, could you repeat the question real quick to see if Annie has anything to add?
Yes, so it was a
you asked
two-parter. It was what platforms are your titles on, which you guys covered. But the second part here, do you record live via Discord, Zoom, or anything like that? And then the part about assembling it later. So I think as a narrator, she's probably wondering, do you record live on Discord or any of those?
I have, and I may again in the future. No. I've in the past. I get a little distracted by the people in my Discord chat, because I just really I really enjoy everyone who comes and listens, and so I end up in these conversations with people, and sometimes I don't get enough work done on accident. So I haven't been doing live Discord stuff, but I should get back into it. Just, you know, practice a little bit more self-control and do some.
Oh no.
The audiobooks
yeah,
you record
but
don't
yes,
sound like
we
this, by the
record,
way.
we record,
It's crazy. She's fantastic at the robotic voices. You know,
we record in DAWs using like professional equipment. Each of us, even Annie, she's just not at her normal setup, but yeah, no, we do everything like very precisely. You know, we try to focus on the details of quality to try to adhere to people's spaces. So we're also a little guerrilla as well, because if somebody has a closet, that's fine. Let's set it up. Let's figure out how to get the best sound out of the room that you got. Let's try to work with as many of the things that we can make work, given the budget, the space, the situation, because you know, we're trying to capture great performances, and sometimes people, they don't have access to huge studios to get the best possible sound. So we're here to like make sure that we can get the best out of people with what they have. So that's the other
Right.
component of being remote. The whole company's remote. We're all in different parts of the country and the world now at this point. And
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, as far as Discord goes, you know, there are a few of us that do stream ourselves, but we also use Discord for things like recording directed sessions. So it used to be we could record another narrator or another actor directly into our own DAWs through this plugin that we use that basically they just sign into it, and then whenever they record, it just records directly into our computer, and that makes things way easier. Except, you know, we have connection issues, internet connection issues that create artifacts, and so that whole convenience gets thrown out the window because now the engineers have to mess with that, or in a lot of cases they just need to be retaken because they get too damaged.
We have done it to great effect. And
Yeah,
also,
and
we just, you know, if you drop in a safety net, like they just recorded on there, and then you can still have a directed session and stuff.
Sure.
And we've even recorded, we recorded the Critical Drinker for DCC. He was recording from Ireland. And
Scotland, but yeah, he was in a pro
Scotland.
studio. Yeah, he was in a pro
but he
studio.
went there, and then he created a Zoom link, and you know, we were able to communicate, and he was able to get his takes. It was seamless. And
So that's for cinematic audio stuff, though. That's for you know, our cinematic audio on our platform, or the audio immersion tunnel for Dungeon Crawler Carl, since that is legally not cinematic audio. In those circumstances, I will be directing, or Justin will be directing, and instead of just what we usually do with audiobooks, which is, okay, the narrator records their part, they have all the other actors' parts in separate tracks, so when they're done with their set, they send it over to the next narrator, and the narrator sees clearly all of their parts recorded in their own track, and they just record right into those on their own. For the cinematic audio, we want more authentic performances. We want a more singular vision behind it because we're putting so much effort into the production itself. We want the performances to match that level. I mean, if we're all piecemeal, if we're all working on the project separately without any kind of guidance, then our performances are only going to fit so well. We can't have every actor in the production read the entire novel. Right, so they can't possibly know unless we paid them way more, right? So it's just not cost effective for that to happen. But if we have a director, then who has a singular vision, then they can very much better guide the actor into giving the exact performance we want for the moment.
So we've got a question here from Jodan, who is an aspiring new narrator. He's asking, what time-wise was a day of work for you, voice endurance? when you started versus where you are now?
Yeah. So for me, when I first started, I couldn't even be in the booth for more than 20 minutes at a time because it wasn't a booth. It was a closet with a pole still there. And I like hung a bunch of hangers, like clothes hangers, and then I put a comforter over that. And then I would close the door. And then, like, literally the closet was so narrow, I couldn't sit in there without touching one of the walls. So no space, gets incredibly hot incredibly fast. I couldn't record for more than 20 minutes at a time without opening the closet door and falling out and hyperventilating for a good 20 extra minutes and then getting back in. So from that perspective, I narrate infinitely more. But I would say nowadays, if my schedule actually allows me to be in the booth as long as I want to, I can go for 6 to 7 hours.
So I have a question for all of you, and it's going to be a little different for each of you. But what has been, and for Jeff, this will be your favorite voice to do. And then for Aaron and Ahmed, this is going to be more of what has been your favorite, contribution to it and or favorite project that was completed. And why don't we start with Aaron on this one?
I have done so many wildly different things with Soundbooth Theater, and many of them have been such pleasant surprises. It's really hard to pick. There was I would say probably just to pick an example is at the beginning of the Kite Battlefield Surgeon series, there was a need for a background song playing to make a coffee shop sound like a really hipster place. And so I got literally this guitar sized or guitar shaped ukulele and just did well, I don't know. And I made lyrics kind of align with the plot as much as I could. And then I just built it out into this very hey, just a very hipster chill acoustic song. And then Jeff was like, you need to make a full version of this immediately, and we're gonna end this with it. And so I came back, and then like a month or two later, when we were getting to the end of the project or more, it was time to fully vamp out. I had my girlfriend in the studio. We set up stereo mics and we screamed the song and made this full choir version of it. And it's just this big epic song that didn't exist, and now it does, just because of because a coffee shop needed to feel kind of douchey. I'll say that's an example of many of where I've been asked to make something and what comes out is just delightful.
I love that song.
How about you, Ahmed?
Oh, Jeff gave me the opportunity to just do the music for a series called Stars Have Eyes, which is my favorite. It's an Ivan Ilyev book series that we converted into an episodic show. And it's
I imagine it would
a,
just fit into one novel, but it's on Royal Road.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi romance where an average guy falls in love with a Cthulhu kind of monster that comes from another dimension, but then just kind of wants to be his girlfriend to peruse our dimension. And so it's all very sweet, but Jeff, he just asked me to do some songs, and I ended up stretching so much and creating such memorable soundtrack, and I was very proud of that work. That was and that and Kaiju is just Kaiju. They get better and better. Kaiju is this awesome, gross horror, it takes you on this like emotional, horrible journey, but at the same time, it's glib and it's funny. And so that's kind of that was my introduction into the world of Matt, because I although we had DCC before that, that was the first one where we actually had to consider like emotions and music and make some deliberate decisions about things for it. And yeah, and just amazing work from Aaron as well for that. Like just he did most of the soundtrack on that one. So yeah, those are probably my two favorites.
I'm always kind of curious, like when you meet people and you find out a lot about them by how they were introduced to Matt's work, like which story brought you into Matt's work.
So for us, it was actually we do this stream called Soundbooth Theater Live. We do it bi-weekly. Now we do it bi-weekly, but especially during COVID, we were doing it a little bit more. I think a lot of people were, streaming a lot more. And during that time, we were reading. Jeff loves to like narrate excerpts from. It's his style. He likes to just hunt and check things out and find things to like try out. And we found that one. It kind of came up in our feed, and he read from it. And actually, I think Gary read from it, and so did Annie. And I think that's how that all began. That was like the very beginning, the tip of like the beginning of this whole journey that we're on now.
So you were fully aware of what you were getting into then. Jeff, how about for you? Do you have a favorite character you played, a favorite complete novel, anything like that just was altogether just something you would have loved to do again and again?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're doing it, right? Dungeon Crawler Carl, we're doing it again. Dungeon Crawler Carl is this insane phenomenon that, like Ahmed said, our real introduction was just doing it on Soundbooth Theater Live and having to laugh. But at that time, I had always known I wanted to work with Matt. I knew that he was a different type of author. Like he was the kind of author that I like, who's writes what they want to write because they have interesting ideas and not necessarily because they think it's going to be successful or whatever. And I'd watched Matt's very interesting stories pass me by. By Kaiju Battlefield Surgeon was one of them. And I was like, I have too many books that I don't think are going to make any money that I'm working on anyway. I can't take this one on either. And so when Dungeon Crawler Carl came around and we did that on Soundbooth Theater Live, I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I have to. I don't care what's going to happen. Let's just do this. And so we did it, and oops, it's like the biggest thing we've ever fucking done. And it was a slow build, the audience for Dungeon Crawler Carl just kept growing and growing and growing, and it's becoming exponential now, and it's hitting a fever pitch, and it's kind of the perfect time for us to be rebooting the whole series. So for those of you who don't know, I narrated books 1 through 6 already, and those characters, this story, this is my favorite project. It's just so perfect for me, and Matt has just the right way of writing that activates shit in my head. And so Carl and Donut, of course, I'm never gonna forget those characters. I'm never gonna narrate another audiobook with Carl's voice. I may use him for characters in books, but this is the last audiobook series that I'll be narrating with that voice because yeah, exactly. I just, I don't want to, I want that to be special. I want that to belong to that series,
Is he your favorite voice in the series then?
Carl is, yeah, he is. But we're doing it again, right? Dungeon Crawler Carl, the audio immersion tunnel. Episode 1 is available for free on our website right now, and in a week from tomorrow, episode 2 is going to release, and then from there, we're gonna have a release every 2 weeks. but you can go pre-order the whole series right now if you want to. And it's full cast sound effects and music version of Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's what I would have wanted. For me, it's the ultimate format. It's the format that you treat a story with that deserves your utmost, attention and respect. And so it was just, to me, if we could have started that way, I would have. If it had made any kind of financial sense to do that, I would have. Of course, I didn't know just how much I would love the series when I first started it anyway. But yeah, now of course I'm keeping the main characters as the voice actor, but I'm really happy to bring everybody else in the crew into this project and to get them involved, because I think everybody, on my team, deserves to kind of like be included in what is, our flagship property that we work on. So yeah, my dream's already coming true. I don't need to wish for anything else. This is it. This is the thing. So
How did it feel hitting #1 on Audible?
that was so gratifying, especially since I never really have worked with super big names, right? Like, the biggest names I've worked with are Matt, of course, who only became big recently, Shemer Kuznets, and Ivan Ilyev, and all of these guys became big while I was doing their stuff. And so I've never really been in a position where, my name could ever reach #1 on Audible, or my productions would ever reach #1 on Audible, just for the pure fact of reach. I never have the backing of big publishers or anybody. And that's kind of what it takes to get to #1 on Audible, right? And we didn't need to do that. We didn't need the backing. In fact, in my opinion, I think Audible made things worse by messing up some of the pre-order stuff. They leaked the cover. We got Patrick Warburton to be the voice of Carl's dad, but they leaked that before the pre-order was available, and they sent out emails to people, oh, you can pre-order Dungeon Crawler Carl 6 now, but they couldn't. It was a broken link. So if anything, and also Meryl Streep was taking the #1 spot as well. So everything was working against us.
Nobody expected Lit RPG to do what it did. And, when we look back 8 years ago or so, everybody thought it was a flash in the pan. And now it's hitting all these #1s, one thing after another, just growing and exploding. Such an awesome thing. And, you guys have majorly contributed to that. So we do have another question, but I did want to ask a little bit something on a lighter note first. Earlier, Matt on a panel had said that when he found out, with Travis Baldree and Patrick Warburton working with you for the series, that it actually shaped how he was writing their parts, because he wanted to make it as uncomfortable for you as possible. So with that in mind, how was it directing those parts and overseeing that and explaining exactly what their various roles would be doing?
If I had been working with dudes any less awesome than Travis Baldree and Patrick Warburton, it probably would have been difficult. But they were right along there with me. In fact, Travis got a hold of the script and read it, much earlier than Patrick did. And so when Travis showed up for his live directed session, I figured I was just gonna get Travis Baldree playing a weird crab. But no, I got Raoul. Raoul came to life immediately. Travis I already have something for this. And I barely had to direct him at all. He went far above and beyond anything I was hoping for. So
Ricardo Montalban or something. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, he actually said his inspiration for that character was, have you guys seen the Weird Al movie UHF? Do you remember the
Yeah.
pet shop guy?
Yes.
Oh, they're really mad now. You know that guy. That guy was his inspiration. So, and since that's one of my favorite movies, it's very appropriate. Yeah. So.
Don't worry, Richie. Even though you showed up late, we've already made sure to tell everyone to send you the feet pictures. So if anyone was wondering who to send the feet pictures to, this is Richie. This is where
Richie
you
right
send
here.
them. So I will go to this last question here. We're just about out of time. So we have from Facebook user, being a narrator for something as dark as kaiju, was there any lasting effects from jumping into those characters?
Oh, I wish we had Annie and Dory here to answer these questions too.
This is Jeff we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't phase me, man.
No.
You can't phase me. The more fucked up, the more delighted I'm going to be to jump into those characters. So I don't know how to answer that question. I will say that the story was affecting. The story, despite all the disgusting grossness, is also incredibly heartfelt and touching at the end. And not even in the aw kind of way, in the oh kind of way, like, holy shit, yeah, this is the human condition, isn't it? Fuck, and I think that's something Matt's really good at, is kind of, he's good at like letting us play and hang out with aliens that aren't human at all, and then pulling a mirror out on us at the last second and making us go, oh yeah, that is what we're like, isn't it? So short answer, no. Kaiju didn't faze me. I just love it.
Yes. I have definitely sent him messages after making me cry. I mean, you guys are also responsible for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
You'll laugh one moment and you'll cringe another, and then you're all of a sudden crying. It's crazy emotional roller coasters. We are just about out of time, so I want to give you guys each a moment to plug what you're currently working on. We know, obviously, some of it, but plug what you're working on. I'll put up some links and things like that for you, and where people can find you. So whatever order you want to go in, go right ahead.
Ahmed, Aaron, you guys go first.
Okay, I'll go first. You can find me at Soundbooth Theater because that's where I'm usually squatting. But also I'll play a little bit of this.
Caught something else on my list. How about this? I offered up the 2 baggies of meth.
Is this all you have? 2 hits?
Lorelei scrabbled at Rory's hand, coming away with one of the bags. The goblin opened the baggie, stuck a pinky in, and had a quick taste. Her eyes grew wide.
This is dungeon made. He didn't bring it in from the outside. Where did you get it? Did it have...
That is just a little sneak preview of episode 2 there. All right,
You just
Aaron.
want to slip the pinky in? Thank you. Well played, sir. Well played.
Amazing. I'm working on multiple things for Soundbooth, more stuff for DCC. So keep a listen because I'm sprinkled in there a little bit. I'm releasing a single next month. You can find me at Aaron J Morton on each of the platforms, and of course here at Soundbooth Theater.
Oh yeah, guys, don't sleep on his Spotify. Look him up on wherever you can find music. He's got lots of his own music that he just makes because he wants to, and it's all great. It's all just fucking fantastic pop with like influence from pretty much everywhere you can conceive of. This is why we hired him. And of course, I am Jeff Hayes. Thank you guys so much for watching the stream. Go to soundbooththeater.com and pick up the Dungeon Crawler Carl Audio Immersion Tunnel Episode 1. It is free to listen to download. And if you like it, pre-order the rest of the season.
Thank you guys very much. understands.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We do have another takeover coming up here after this. And
Who's taking over this time?
We have next coming up is Troy Osgood. Oh, yep, and the voice line of this slaps. Absolutely. Aaron,
this
if
is
you wouldn't
Aaron.
mind,
Aaron, this guy. That
if
guy.
you wouldn't mind, Aaron, your music, if you have a link to your music that you can share with us so everybody can check you out, that would be great. All right, and thank you again, everyone. You have a good night.